But my position has been pretty consistent through the whole thing. I'm not in support of any bill that would limit resources or support to individuals with special needs, disabled individuals, special education. I think that this was a bill that was in search of a problem, as I mentioned last time. 100% of the emails that I received from the individuals and citizens around Iowa were in support of the AEAs, including those that said that they didn't have the greatest experience with the AEAs, still recognizing that they were really important. What I wanted to ultimately see out of it was a study. I think far too often we move too quickly in this space, and I'll give you an example, and then I'll end my comments on this. Is last year on the reorg bill, we did something to move vocational rehabilitation, which does post-secondary services and employment opportunities for individuals with disabilities. We moved them from the Department of Ed into workforce development. We have now moved across the state to a 6-month waiting period. Here, our waiting period in council-bluffs hasn't moved since November the 6th. And so I think that is an indication, an example of how we really need to take and go slow, do a study, let's look at those results, let's find areas where we're inefficient, where we can make change, but let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's my position on it.
Okay, I'm going to answer the question, but I'm going to hit on a couple topics on SSA, teacher pay, because it's getting all balled up here in the Senate, right? So I will answer the question here, but I think everyone's nodding their heads that inside the building, insider's game, this is all related. So the question was your position on AEAs. The answer is AEAs provide a valuable service to the state of Iowa, particularly rural communities. There's not enough population density, there's not enough property tax base and other revenues there to provide the service for each individual school district that the AEAs provide in a regional area, hands down. At the same time too, it's like the AEAs, it is probably, and not probably, they do need to have some scrutiny. Whatever that level is, that remains to be seen, right? We started off at the beginning of the year back in December sitting down with Dr. Murillo, and she has one position, and that's not the only position, right? But Dr. Murillo definitely had a lot of input given into the bill that the governor eventually ended up dropping. Dr. Murillo from council-bluffs School District has a position that they think that they can provide a better service than what the AEAs does. That is one point of view. That does not mean that that there's not a cause and effect in this whole thing here, which is where the consternation comes up at the legislature in the Capitol. So the governor dropped her bill. That bill died in both chambers, dead. There's no rehabilitating that thing whatsoever. The rollout, the content, everything about it. I mean, other than the principles, and I think the principles, to give the governor credit, always was reform the administrative side of the AEA and raise the bill for the special education kids. As I said before, did it stick the landing? Absolutely not on that. So the House decided to rebuild a different pathway on how to address the AEA concerns, and then the Senate went down a different way, and the House passed a bill. That's a fine bill, I'm always cautious to say things up here because we all know when we go back Monday, we start throwing barbs because we're all in the text messages like, oh, Senator so-and-so said this, and then you got House people out there like, I'm going to kill his damn bill, and vice versa, and just, it ain't worth it, right? So, because we do need to close the place down, we all do need to come together up here at the end. So the Senate, Lynn Evans, he is a former superintendent in a rural area, and he has a distinct opinion on the AEAs too. He's kind of our point person up there, so he's recrafted his bill. That is, again, the House passed their bill out. Inside the AEA governor's package, as well as the Senate package, the thought process is reforming some of those administrative sides of the House and then creating additional space on their side to raise base teacher pay in Iowa. The Senate has come up with their bill. It's come out of Education Committee. We caucused on that about a week and a half ago, and there were not the votes to move that particular version forward of what, and again, God bless him, Senator Lynn Evans, what he's trying to get done there, right? But just not the votes there on that. We'll probably take another run at it again in a different form. I don't know what that looks like yet, right? Tied up in all this is SSA. That should have been done the first 30 days of session or thereabout. Brent and I have had some pretty candid conversations. I think we're pretty much in agreement on that. But unfortunately, neither of us set the calendar up there. So depending on what number you set, SSA controls your overall budget there's a cause and effect on teacher pay there in the end. And then some of the initial proposals made for an AEA, whether that space is created on administrative reforms, also provides a gap space on the budget too. I am of the opinion, I'm gonna hit a couple opinions here, and I'm trying to be as polite as I can about it. The House passed over a 3% SSA bill. I don't personally believe AEA and teacher salaries should be a showstopper to get that done. The delta between 2.5 and 3, and I know there is some disagreements on the teacher pay side, but I just don't believe, for putting my tax hat on and looking at the overall budget, the delta between those two is so great that this thing has to stop. Nevertheless, here we are where we are, 4 weeks out, we don't have an SSA bill out there, and somehow, some way, someone has tied all three of these things together. I don't know if that's supposed to be a pressure point, negotiation, or maybe people have a genuine difference of opinions on that budgetary aspect. I just don't. That being said, and to the proponents, people who really truly believe in this, to their credit, we have seen it on the Medicaid side. If we wait to the federal government to come in and tell us what to do, i.e. down in Glenwood, what happened a few years ago, it does become a lot more costly for the state of Iowa to deal with repercussions of federal government edicts, as opposed to us getting ahead of this issue. So there are a lot of people, not just a lot, there's a line of thinking out there that federal government is supposed to be coming in this fall. They are going to be reviewing the AEAs and special education services provided here in Iowa, and there are some concerns of do we pass or not, right? So that's what drives some of this, is to get ahead of this. And there's a line of thinking out there, well, we've been on the list for however many years and they haven't done anything yet. We do know they are coming in this fall, but we don't know what the outcome's going to be, right? So that's what causes all the problems here. I want to be respectful to everyone of us from different vantage points, right? Because, I have multiple conversations, council, school districts, they genuinely believe they want to get something done on this. And then there are other people there, and I just had a conversation this morning coming here, on the study committee, right? I don't know how we come together on this, but I do know that there at max are 53 votes in the House based upon the bill that passed over, so that's your ceiling. And I got a pretty good idea of where the max cap is in the Senate side, and you only lose votes from there. So, I don't know. I can't say anything else without getting really frustrated. I just don't see, if nothing, I don't know. I'm just gonna stop right there. It is, Brent and I, we've had multiple conversations, and I don't know how to break the stamp lock jam.
First off, I used to set the calendar and the agenda. I don't anymore. So otherwise, we wouldn't have this problem. But having said that, I meant to mention Majority Leader Matt Winschittel was supposed to be here. He called me this morning. He's under the weather. Josh and I were talking earlier. It's like we have 70 people in our room the other day for our caucus, and everybody, over half of them were hacking and coughing. It was like being in an enclosed petri dish. So he's sick this morning, and it's really going around the Capitol. So that's why he's not here. Where to start on all this? First off, Dan's right. The three issues have been combined. They shouldn't be. SSA, which is schools supplemental aid, the annual increase to schools, has somehow been tied into the AEA bill, and then also the teacher salary bill. The governor's bill put the teacher salary bill within the AEA bill, which frankly doesn't make any sense, but we do that once in a while to try to curry favor one side or the other. The House has separated those out. And so it is inexcusable that we haven't come to an agreement on SSA. I heard the Senate Majority Leader talking to the press on Thursday saying he was really disappointed they hadn't moved SSA yet. And my thought was, well, then you need to debate it, send it back to the House. I mean, with the difference between 3% and 2.5%, it's pretty easily bridged. We could figure that out. But if we haven't, the House has passed SSA, the House has passed a separate teacher salary bill, and the House has passed an AEA bill. In the Senate, for whatever reason, and again, none of that reflects on Dan, haven't done any of it, so that's fine. We need to figure our way through it. And SSA needs to be done as quickly as possible for the school districts. The same is true of the teacher salary bill. The teacher salary bill, which I don't remember if we talked about it last time, our bill would set the minimum teacher salary at $47,500 next year and then $50,000 the second year. That doesn't do a great deal for Council-Bluffs or Lewis Central, but for a lot of other districts across the state it does. The cost of that's about $24 million. And then we would also, and this, the governor doesn't particularly like this piece, we put $14 million in there for para-educators or that classification of could be bus drivers, cooks, whatever, to give the school districts that money. And para-educators are extremely important. If we really want to improve special ed scores, we need to take care of our para-educators because that's who's working with those kids every day. So we have that in there, and then it's about $25 million that would simply go in to what we call the TSS, the Teacher Supplemental Salary Fund, which would allow the districts then to kind of figure out where they want the money to go. So that's about another, I can't remember, 50 or 60 million dollars that we put in on top of the 3% SSA, which is $108 million. And I think we can come to an agreement with that, but it is all clogged up with the AEA bill. Here's the bottom line in the AEA bill. What the House passed, I don't love, but I voted for it. The AAs are neutral on the bill. They don't love it, but they understand something needs to be done. This whole issue has already brought about some of the changes that people would want to do, particularly concerning some of the administrative positions within the AEA system. I know one AEA close by that 2 mid-level administrators have retired, and they're not going to replace those people, and some of that needs to be done. So the message has been heard pretty loud and clear, and so I think some of that has been already resulted in some things moving towards a little less administrative overhead. The bottom line is, the House passed this bill 53 with 53 votes. Not to sound at all egotistical or whatever, but seeing I did run the AAs for 15 years, I have more than a few of our members in my caucus said, they'll say, I'm going to vote however you vote because you know what you're talking about for once. And so we could have taken that bill down, but I think we need to do something. I think we need to take the issue. Because otherwise, as I said on live TV, which wasn't one of my better moves, I said if we don't, the governor's going to go on a rampage, which wasn't meant particularly well in the governor's office, but what I meant is that she's really invested in this issue, and she's going to continue to talk about it. And when she's talking about it, in my opinion, she's trashing the AAs unfairly because there's plenty of blame to go around. So I think we need to do something. We need to have a study. That's in our bill. We can look at our media and technology services and give that money directly to the districts to let them spend it where they want to. I think the AAs will fare very well in that. The AAs are not afraid of that sale of service, so that a school district can decide, do we want to use the AAs or do we want to use a private vendor? I think the AAs went out in that. We do that a year from now in our bill, and then the educational services, which are a bunch of things that the AEAs offer, very important. 2 years from now, we would give the money to the school districts to spend where they want to, and I think they'll continue to use the AEA. And then we do give the Department of Education 13 positions, which gives me heartburn to have them help them have more oversight over the AEAs. I think they already have plenty, but we can go along with that. Again, it's not my favorite bill, but that I can overlook and do that. The most important part is it doesn't change special education, the funding for special education. In our bill, the funding would go to the school district, but they have to use the AEA because that's who provides the best services. We've seen this with managed care organizations when we turned over all our Medicaid and so on to private vendors. There's a profit motive there, and so our special education parents, our kids with IEPs, they want to make sure they get the same level of service, and that level will be better because of all the scrutiny that's been on it. So our bill says the money can go to the districts, which gives them more transparency. They can see exactly where their money's being spent, but they have to use the AEAs. The governor still doesn't like that. I'm just saying right now, we could be here in July or August. That's the bottom line. The House is not going to pass anything that changes the special education funding. There isn't 20 votes in the House to do that. So if the governor or the Senate, and I don't think the Senate's there, wants to keep us around forever, we'll be around forever. The House will not be passing anything that's going to affect special education funding, giving it directly to the districts to use elsewhere. The votes are not there. No amount of pressure will change that. And I will not be there. I've gone as far as I'm gonna go. The House bill, in my perfect world, the Senate would pass it. I think it's a good bill that would move the whole system forward. And it has that task force study in there so that we can really have the right people around the table to see what improvements can be made. So it'll be interesting to see where it all goes. Hopefully we can come together very quickly. But again, the House has got their bills out there, and as soon as the Senate passes something, we can engage in the negotiations, and eventually, hopefully, will result in a bill that we can pass and send to the governor.